Whenever I do a funeral or a wake or a eulogy or something like that, most of the time, either myself or the person talking about the person who's just passed becomes a saint immediately after death. And one time, one of our priests in my religious order died, and his family was really, really close to me. I knew them before I became a priest with my congregation. And they explicitly told me, you are not allowed to canonize Father Don. He gave us specific instructions to tell whoever preached his homily not to canonize him, but to pray for his soul. I said, okay. So when I preached the homily, I made sure I did not canonize him. A lot of us don't feel nervous about our preparation for our death. When I talk to most people, hey, Father, I'm good. I'm okay. And you might be. But St. Paul has an interesting take about preparation. He always had an unconfident nervousness of losing his salvation. He didn't want to be caught off guard. And so the more I catch myself trying to be on guard or paying attention to I never know when my last breath is going to be, the more nervous I get. In fact, it's so weird. The more I take St. Paul's words seriously about being prepared and staying awake, the more I worry about losing my salvation. And when you read the angels, we read the saints, they'll say the same thing. So I guess I'm in good company. Like most saints will tell you they're great sinners or they're sinful and they feel nervous about losing their salvation. They saw the fragility of keeping my salvation or losing it. And I go, that's a pretty humble person, but that's also a person who's awake, who's paying attention to their own salvation. Now, St. Thomas Aquinas said, if you want to become a saint, all you have to do is this one thing, and one thing only, and it's this. You have to will it. You have to want to be a saint. So the good news is, when we die and we go to purgatory, we eventually become saints. But we don't know how long that's going to be, because it's above my pay grade, and I really don't have a book that tells me how long you're going to be in purgatory. I've asked Jesus, and he hasn't told me yet. That makes me nervous. Now, a couple days ago, I went at 3:30 in the afternoon. I left LA to go back east. The worst time of the day to leave, right? It took me 4 hours to get out of LA. I just experienced purgatory, possibly hell. It was bad. So if the goal in this life is to be a saint and to remove as much time in purgatory as possible as a holy person of God, you notice the saints never talk about that. They just talk about doing God's will, God's work, and becoming a saint. And let the rest take care of itself, meaning your temple punishment will take care of itself. But focusing on staying awake and doing God's work and will. These are very strong words. And what does Jesus say to lazy people? He says, wailing and grinding of teeth. That means hell. Jesus is not mincing words here. He can't stand lazy. If you're physically unable, that's fine. You can't do it. But not lazy. We're not allowed to be lazy. And I've been reading a lot of articles lately of the work ethic being taken down quite a few notches in our culture now. Like, oh, I don't need to work hard. Jesus never said not to relax, but he also said don't be lazy. So I like to relax and I like to work. There's a time for both. But more importantly, I'm awake. I pay attention to how God works in my life and how he works in other people's lives. And the more I do that, the more God brings more things into my life to notice. From the big things to the small things. And a lot of us miss that. We miss how God works in our life. So are you awake? Are you paying attention? Are you working on your salvation? Only you can control that, nobody else. And it's only your choice, not your spouse, not your kids, not the priest, not the pope, not the bishop, but you, me. We get to choose. And thank God for that, because sometimes I don't like their choices. But I get to choose. That's the freedom of Catholicism. So Jesus is challenging us in a very strong way. Can't be lazy. We got to stay awake. We got to prepare ourselves, and we got to work out our holiness. And we got to do God's work and will. Amen. Please stand.